can we have your best ever 11 that you played with?
Oh, scribbled hard. Gave it at least 5 minutes thought earlier on. Well, the goalkeeper, it was tough, really tough decision for me because Phil Parkes, who I played with at West Ham, was a wonderful shot stopper, incredible, 6'4", huge guy. Shot stopping, probably the best I played with. But the man I've gone in for in goal is Neville Southall, and the reason I've gone for Nev is because now I think you've got to be able to play with the ball at your feet. You've got to play out from the back. You've got to have almost the overall game now. And I think a lot of goalkeepers have got that. So Nev, when I went to Everton, bearing in mind this is 1988, I couldn't believe that Nev wanted to play more in the five-a-sides than he did practice his goalkeeping, because he was naturally he was a wonderful goalkeeper. Yeah. He was playing five-a-sides on the Friday, you know, and I think, what's going on? You know, because Phil Parkes would never do that, but Nev was great with his feet, and he liked to come out. He almost wanted to be an outfield player, but couldn't. So I've gone for Nev in goal because you get the all-round game, and I'm thinking, well, this is a team that's going to play next week. Obviously, it's not. But
with Neville Southall, he did say to ask you about your scrapbook.
Yep.
So he said
scrapbooks are up there in the loft. Don't ask me to get them down because they're all packed away. But
he did say, he said because we mentioned you was coming on show to him, and he said, ask him about his scrapbook.
I got so much stick over the years with scrapbook. It started with my dad. My dad, when I was under 7. My dad, he'd done a scrapbook of the season. My dad was the manager of my team, so all he'd do was put 1-11 down, result, score, where we played, who we played against, and then if you're lucky, you got a little snippet like that in the local paper, and he bought a newspaper.
Yeah,
I was just fascinated with it, and my dad done it until I was about 12 years of age, and then he went, well, you're big enough and old enough now, you can do it yourself. So I carried on doing it myself. But what's good about it is not that we're going to do this, but if you wanted to ask me who I played in February 1973 as an under 9 or whatever, I could go up to my scrapbook and I could tell you who we played, Brilliant. What the score was. And so I've got the 30 years that I had as a player, basically from the age of 6 to 36. I've got full detail of my career, which is great if you want to reference back or if you're doing a book or whatever, you know.
It'd make a great book one day if you ever wanted to do it.
Yeah, well, I had done the book, so it was helpful with referring and that. But, you know, people like Nev and Tony Cottee at West Ham and that absolutely cane me for having a scrapbook. You know? I think they was just jealous that they didn't have their own scrapbook. So, But I'm not surprised Nev has asked that. At right back, I've gone for Ray Stewart. Ray played for West Ham in the late 70s and the 80s. He was part of West Ham's cup final team in 1980. Our top league finish in 86. He was a vital part of that. He was a wonderful penalty taker. He scored 78 out of 84. So, you know, which is, and we always talk about Matt Latiers, who I know you've spoken to, who was probably of the modern era, he was the best. Before that, you had Ray Stewart, and also in between was the left back that I put down, which is Julian Dix. You might remember Julian Dix. Yeah. Julian's one of those players. There's a couple of players in my team that would have to modify their game to play in the modern era. Because the days of launching someone, as Dixie used to say, I'm going to launch him.
At least he's honest.
Or I'm going to kick shit out of him today. You know, those days, you know, as we know, you put a finger on someone, they fall over nowadays. So, but Dixie. The reason I put him in at left back is he was a very, very good player. You know, he could ping a ball, he could get down the line, he was quick, deceptively quick. You know, cross the ball, he could do everything. He was good in the air. So I've got Ray Stewart right back, Dixie at left back. Centre half, I've gone for Alvin Martin, who I played with at West Ham. Alvin played 21 years at West Ham. It was a good old fashioned centre half, and he was a sort of head it, kick it and win it and that. But he also liked to do a few little tricks and drag backs on the edge of his box, which the manager never used to like, but Alvin used to do that. And to compensate for Alvin, I wouldn't say lack of pace, but he wasn't the quickest. I've put Kevin Ratcliffe alongside him.
Right,
Rats, Welsh boy, as you know, wonderful player, you know, and I played against him a lot of times, and he was aggressive, but he also read the game well, and because he was quick, he always seemed to get to the ball before you, so it was tough to play against. So I'm going to put Rats on the left side and Alvin on the right. In my midfield, I've gone for Mark Wald, who I played with at West Ham and Everton. He was only 5'5", 5'6", Waldy, but he was strong as anything. Typical Scouser, wanted to fight the world, but he was a great player. You know, good finisher, good at crossing, and aggressive as well. Central midfield, I've gone for the genius that was Trevor Brooking. Again, Trevor wasn't the quickest player in the world, but he used to beat players by letting the ball run across his body. And the defender would go that way and the ball, he'd go that way. And he hadn't even touched the ball and he was beating someone. So Trevor was a wonderful player. I only had one full season with Trevor, unfortunately, because I was young and he was older. But I've got to have him in the team. And another guy who would have to modify his game is Billy Bonds, legendary West Ham captain. And Bill liked to have a scrap and a kick and everything. But he was always underrated, I think, as a player. So, as a holding midfield player, you've got to have that role now. Any good team nowadays, as you know, holding midfield player, Bill would do that. And then on the left was probably the best player I played with, which was Alan Devonshire, who was, he was a bit of a mixture of Foden, Grealish, all rolled into one. He was a wonderful player. Only played 8 times for England, but should have won a lot more caps. But he played on the left. And up front, I've got my old mucker, Frank McAvenny's got to be in my team, wonderful player and really good team player. And I want Frank to score the goals, and then to create the goals, I've got Peter Beardsley, who I played with Everton, and obviously when I was in the England squad as well. So I've got a really, really good creative attacking team.
What was he like as a player, Beardsley? Gets talked about a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, Pete was what I liked about Pete. So Pete would get the ball when we were playing at Everton. He'd get the ball, he'd beat 4 defenders, get through with the goalkeeper, draw the goalkeeper, tap the ball square to me. I then tap the ball into an empty net, and Pete would run after me as if I'd scored the best goal in the world. He's beat 4 players, and I'm just doing what I normally do, to tap it in from 6 yards. But he was just such a great. He was a great lad, great part of the team spirit, but he was a really top player, really top player internationally as well.
Any of those boys world class?
I think Alan Devonshire.
Yep.
Alan Devonshire on his day was world class, without a doubt. Trevor on his day was world class. Peter Beardsley on his day was world class. So you've got what we were talking about on their day, and there were many, many games where they put in world class performances. But it's hard. It's so hard. You keep pushing me for that words, world class. It's tough. It's tough. It is tough. Isn't it? Yeah. It's a good team. It's a really good team though, and it's a team that certainly would. Even in the modern era, because people always say, they couldn't play in the modern era. I've already said some of them would have to modify their game, but if you was technically a good player in the 60s, 70s, I say 60s because someone like Bobby Moore, Jimmy Greaves, 60s, 70s, 80s, you could play in the modern era without a doubt.
And if you like that clip, you can catch the full episode here, and you can subscribe to the channel here.